Greetings, this is Robin Walker, the Black History Man. I'm about to lead another workshop on history aimed at you, the adults. I'm speaking on the West African civilizations of ancient Ghana and medieval Mali. So why is this important to you? Why do you need to know this? Well, this history and heritage will inspire you and it will build pride in that African lineage, that African heritage. I'm a firm believer in the idea that you can't ask people to be proud of being African unless you show them African heritage to be proud of. Moreover, I'm going to link that heritage to wealth building principles that we can all use. Now, did you know these 10 things about early West Africa? Number one, checks are not quite as new an invention as we were led to believe. In the 10th century, an Arab geographer called Ibn Hawqal visited a fringe region of ancient Ghana, and he was there approximately 951 AD, more than 1,000 years ago. And he witnessed a merchant writing another merchant a check for 42,000 golden dinars. The same Ibn Hawqal, which brings me to my second fact, described the king of Ghana as the richest king on the face of the earth. And Hawqal explains that the Ghanaian king's wealth and preeminence was due to the quantity of gold nuggets that had been dug up in the past and by the present king's predecessors, again, more than 1,000 years ago. Number three, a source, 1067, describes West African Bling culture. The source is a scholar called El Bekri, and he was a geographer who wrote the Book of the Roads and Kingdoms. And he says, the Emperor of Ghana sits in a pavilion around which stand his horses, caparisoned in cloth of gold. Behind him stand 10 pages holding shields and gold-mounted swords. And on his right hand are the sons of the princes of his empire, splendidly clad and with gold plaited into their hair. The gate of the chamber is guarded by dogs of an excellent breed. They wear collars of gold and silver. So when we talk about bling culture, we're usually talking about what the humans are wearing. Here we've got animals with collars of gold and silver, horses with cloth with gold stitched through it. That is blinging, 1067 AD, 1 year after the Battle of Hastings, 1066 in Britain. Number four, glass windows existed at that time. The residence of the Ghanaian emperor in 1116 AD was, and I'm quoting now, a well-built castle, thoroughly fortified, decorated inside with sculptures and pictures, and having glass windows. The person who told us this was a medieval geographer called El Idrisi. Number five, according to the BBC, the West African Empire of Mali was the richest country in the 14th century world. The BBC put out a 10-part series called Millennium, 1,000 Years of History. Now the program, dedicated to the 14th century, began with a voiceover which read, in the 14th century, the century of the scythe, natural disasters threaten civilizations with extinction. The Black Death kills more people in Europe, North Africa, and Asia than any catastrophe has before. Civilizations which avoid the plague thrive. In West Africa, the Empire of Mali becomes the richest in the world. Okay, our sixth fact. Mali in the 14th century was highly urbanized. There's an Italian art and architecture scholar called Sergio Domian, and he wrote the following about this period. And I'm quoting now, but it's been translated from the French. It was a French language book. Thus was laid the foundation of an urban civilization. At the height of its power, Mali had at least 400 cities, and the interior of the Niger Delta was very densely populated. Number 7. National Geographic described Timbuktu, which is one of the Malian cities, as the Paris of the medieval world on account of its intellectual culture. According to African American professor Henry Louis Gates, 25,000 university students studied there. Number 8. Many old West African families have private manuscript collections that go back hundreds of years. The Mauritanian cities of Chinguetti and Wadan have a total of 3,450 handwritten books, some of which date back to the 8th century. There may be 6,000 books still surviving in another city called Walata. There are 11,000 books in private collections in Niger. There are 250,000 manuscripts in Hausaland, northern Nigeria. Finally, in Timbuktu, Mali, there are about 700,000 surviving books. That's a very conservative estimate. One scholar put the estimate at between 4 and 5 million. Okay, number 9. A collection of 1,600 books was considered a small library during the West African Golden Age. There was a scholar from Timbuktu known as Ahmed Baba, and he was a professor at the university there, and he is recorded as saying that he had the smallest library of any of his friends. He had only 1,600 volumes. So the next question then is, source question 10.10, what was in these manuscripts? According to Michael Palin, he did a TV series called Sahara. He said the Imam of Timbuktu has a collection of scientific texts that clearly show the planets circling the sun. They date back hundreds of years. It's convincing evidence that the scholars of Timbuktu knew a lot more than their counterparts in Europe. In the 15th century, in Timbuktu, the mathematicians knew about the rotation of the planets, knew about the details of the eclipse. They knew things which we had to wait for 150, almost 200 years to know in Europe, when Galileo and Copernicus came up with these same calculations and were given a very hard time for it. So, what's the next step as far as you're concerned? A colleague and I are hosting a workshop where we want to share these ideas with the community. Our next session is on Tuesday evening, the 10th of September, at the Bridge Park Centre in northwest London. If this interests you, click on the link below to go to Eventbrite for tickets. My lecture is called The Importance of Planning, Wealth Principle from the Mansas of Mali. The wealth principle we can learn is the importance of long-term planning. It was planning that made Mali the richest country in the 14th century world. For you, planning will chart your individual process off the plantation towards building your own passive income streams, ultimately towards financial independence, financial freedom, and then when we hit the real pinnacle, building your 5 pillars of wealth. I'm also going to explain who were the Mansas of Mali. Why is Mansa Musa of special inspiration to all fortune builders? What were the 6 policies that the Mansas of Mali and their ancient Ghanaian predecessors, what were the policies that they implemented to build massive wealth for their countries? Why is personal planning absolutely essential for all fortune builders? And what are the details that should go into a personal plan? So who would I like to see at our workshop? Beginners interested in Black history but do not know where to start. Adults interested in personal development, money management, business and entrepreneurship. Activists interested in learning West African heritage. Community members interested in deepening their knowledge of Black or African history. Anyone who wants to advance wealth building in the community. So if this interests you, click on the link below to go to Eventbrite for tickets. Otherwise, see you there Tuesday, the 10th of September.